Hi, and welcome to Joining Us, celebrating 50 years of Bands of America. My name is Chuck Henson, and for 35 of those 50 years, I was the primary public address announcer for Bands of America's series of regional and the Grand National Marching Band Championships. Now, over the course of the next 25 episodes, I'm going to do my very best to bring you the people and stories that ultimately have created the excellence that is BOA.
I just was fascinated by this man's marketing ability and the idea that he was putting together a national organization.
Well, one was having hamburgers directly across the table from Dr. Ravelli. So I'm literally watching him eat a hamburger thinking, that's William D. Ravelli having a hamburger in front of me.
Back when Marching Bands of America began in 1975, I and my high school marching band were one of the first to participate.
10 years after the experience, I'm still hearing from kids who thought that was one of the coolest things they ever got to do.
I mean, when you went joining us, those kids went nuts right then. You could have read out of a phone book from that point on. You had them.
They're just going to blow the roof off the place. Like, I get chills thinking about it.
The rifles would spin rifles, then they would catch them and they would fall on the ground at the end of the tune.
Like a death drop.
Yeah.
What's in your blood? If you cut my arm, I'll bleed Bands of America, Music for All.
What Marching Bands of America started was innovative, so new, so exciting.
50 years, a half century? Are you kidding me?
Happy 50th anniversary to Bands of America.
So get your program, find a great seat here in our virtual stadium, and get ready to learn everything you ever wanted to know about Bands of America. Joining us from Bellbrook, Ohio. Wow, I can't believe we're actually here. We're actually doing this. You know, when Music for All approached me a couple months ago about producing a 50th anniversary podcast, of course I jumped at it right away. I can't imagine not being a part of something so spectacular. And I can't imagine this first guest not being our first guest. I was almost insistent that he be the first guy behind the mic. Number one, because he's going to make me feel much more comfortable about what we're doing because we've been friends for so long. But number two, Dr. Tim Lautzenheiser knows everything there is to know about the beginnings of what we know and love at Music for All. So let me, without further ado, introduce the executive director of Attitude Concepts for today and an all-around good guy and doofus, a friend of mine, Dr. Tim Lautzenheiser. Tim, welcome. I'm glad you're here.
Chuck, it's great to be with you. Like you said, lifetime friends, buddy.
Yeah, 35 years. Can you believe that?
No. Particularly since I'm only 23 years old.
Fact. That is fact. That is truth, and I can verify that. Tim, I wanted you to be the first person here for a number of reasons. Number one, because you and I have such a great rapport, and we always have had over the course of time. Tim, you weren't actually the first executive director, but you were right there at the beginning, right? Who was there prior to you?
Gary Beckner was the first one, and Nick Valenziano, Dr. Valenziano, was the educational director. And then when Beckner moved on, Nick became the executive director. And then after Nick, that's when I jumped into the job. Nick Valenziano and Larry McCormick went to high school together.
Really?
Yeah. And Nick was the drum major of the high school band. Larry obviously played percussion in the band. And then I was called the assistant to the president of McCormick's. And of course, that was Larry. And then when the switch was made, I took over the then Marching Bands of America.
How did you even come to know that there was such a thing as McCormick's? And let me back up just a little bit, because tell us about McCormick's, and then we'll get into that.
Well, I mean, Larry McCormick is a genius, just incredible marketing.
That's a fact.
Mind. Oh, absolutely. And he was visionary. And at that time, people bought things out of stores, right? And then Larry got the 800 number, which was, wow, that was a big thing. And people bought things online. And he specialized in everything from boots and poles to instruments that the bands were using. And so it was sort of like Amazon before Amazon. Does that make sense?
I was just going to say that.
Yeah. And the man was incredible. Well, he still is.
But you weren't anywhere near Chicago when this was happening, right?
No, I was teaching, Chuck, at the University of Missouri, and I just was fascinated by this man's marketing ability and the idea that he was putting together a national organization. So I just wrote him a letter and said, I love your mind. I love the way it thinks and everything. And then he wrote back and we began a communication, and that lasted another 4 years before I made the jump to Chicago.
And Larry was, last time I saw him and Joy was at Grand Nationals 2023, my last year announcing, and it was the board president now who brought them down into the booth. And Larry's standing there, and he hadn't been to Grand Nationals in a very long time.
Yes, sir.
And he's looking out from my press box booth, which is at the 0-yard line at the roof. So you see the whole thing. And I said to him, I go, did you ever imagine that this is what you started? And he's like, it's mind blowing. He goes, my heart just is so full all the time. Could you sense that in him when you met him?
Oh, absolutely. When I say visionary, he could look ahead and see what people needed before they knew they needed it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it absolutely does. And what you said about him being really the first in our industry to offer online ordering, an 800 number, something where you didn't have to go to the store, that it would come to you.
Yeah.
Now, Mr. Beckner, he went on to, did he start the Music Bowl series of events or?
He was part of the initial growth of it, yes.
So this was a time in band history when that sort of nationalization was beginning to happen.
Yes, that was the genesis of it, for sure.
Because my high school went to a Music Bowl event at the University of Cincinnati when I was at good old Boone County in Florence, Kentucky. And it was a great event. But even then, because that would have been like 1980 probably, even then, MBA was still a much bigger event. At least in our eyes, MBA was a much bigger event.
Yes.
At what point because I think you've told me previously that there almost wasn't a Bands of America, that at some point they were going to shut it down.
Well, after the first Grand Nationals, financially, it was a drain on McCormick's Enterprises. And Larry had shifted and put a lot of revenue in it. And it was like, we can't keep going this direction, or we're gonna take down the overall.
Yeah.
And I remember going into his office and going, let's just get through the summer event. Just give it to me. We'll get through the summer event. And then that's when it started to explode.
Because there were two. There were Summer Nationals was the original show, right? And then after that came the Fall Marching Band events.
Yes, because Summer Nationals was the big one.
That was attached to camp.
Yes, absolutely. And that was
and this is a really interesting fact. Camp wasn't initially a student-oriented camp, was it?
No, it was teachers.
That's why you were losing money.
Well, I mean, that's when the whole course style for marching band was coming into play.
Yeah.
And Larry's idea was we will teach the teachers how to do this. And so those first camps were just teachers. And then we expanded it to include students.
At the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater, at the stadium there is a magnificent placard that I love to see anytime I'm in that building that dedicates that first Grand National Championship to that stadium. And it just gives me goosebumps every single time I see it.
Yeah, major.
And you were there.
Yeah. It was great. It was great.
So tell me about that first event, that first Summer Nationals.
I wasn't at that one, but I was at the second one because I was a judge.
You judged the second one?
Yeah, I was a judge.
How many bands? Do you remember? It wasn't a lot, was it?
Probably 30, 32, 33, something like that. Yeah.
Because at that point, Summer Nationals, like everybody had a summer band program, didn't they?
They did. And there was a circuit, which is still going on, by the way, of bands in the Midwest that they did like drum corps, only it was bands. And they went from school to school and had shows. And that always was linked in with the summer festival in the community, 4-H and all that.
Yeah, when I did the Scouts Alumni Corps a few years back, we performed an exhibition at Sun Prairie's show in the summer, which is still happening to this day, Sun Prairie, Wisconsin.
Yeah, they were part of that.
Amazing. All right. So you'd walk into Larry's office, you say, listen, give me one more shot. Let's get some kids involved here. How do you start marketing to the students to get students? And how many students were at that first camp?
I can't tell you how many, maybe 400, 500, 600 right in there.
That's a hugely successful event then.
Oh, it was then. Adding the students is what I think was the momentum. And at that time, Andrea, my wife, was helping out. And we were calling band directors, chasing them down the summer, going, what's it going to take to have you come and bring a few students and everything? And
we're still doing that to this day.
Isn't it? We never quit, right? Right.
Only it's, hey, do you got any violin players? We'd love to.
Whatever. You got somebody who can fog a mirror, we'll get them in there.
Wow. I can't imagine how proud you must have been after that first. When the kids were at the camp and you're like, oh, light bulb goes off. This is it. This is where we need to be. Student focused.
Yes, absolutely.
Could you have even imagined 1976, 1977, 1978, what Bands of America, what Marching Bands of America, Bands of America, Music for All would become?
No. It was just present moment.
You're just trying to go day to day at that point?
That's the way to put it, Chuck. It was day to day. Can we get to the next one? To
this day, you're still an icon in this activity. I mean, the phrase Dr. Tim has become something that has its own life. Do you feel like a caricature sometime in your own storyline?
I don't even think about it.
Really? You just do your thing? For anybody who's not been to one of Tim's sessions or seminars, you should do it. I mean, to this day, they are still just as impactful and just as inspiring, I think is the word I'm looking as they were on day one.
You're kind.
How do you find your inspiration for jumping back up on that stage every single time in front of a new group of kids?
What a great question, Chuck. God, you're so good at this. You live off the energy of the kids. Well, you've done it, buddy. Yeah, you've been there. I'll tell you what, because some of it involves you and you can understand. When you stand in front of that energy, you cannot not reflect it if you've got a heart in your body at all. And Chuck, those many times at Grand Nationals when we would do the leadership workshop, yeah, and you would be on break and come in and talk to the kids. What was it like for you when you jumped up on that stage?
Well, first of all, insanely nervous every time. And I think that any performer, anybody's going to be nervous. If you're not a little bit nervous when you step onto that stage, then you're not going to do it right.
Right.
You know, if you take for granted that you've got everything you need to do this perfectly, then you're probably going to mess it up.
Right.
So I would always come onto the stage with the concept of respect for what they've done and what they've accomplished.
Yes, sir.
And then I always say, I'm just part of your program. I'm not here to be anything more than helpful to you because you're the ones who put in the hard work.
What did it feel like when those kids would respond to you?
Oh, it's electric. It's humbling in every regard. You really suffer from imposter syndrome big time. You know, why are they cheering for me? I am nothing. They are the stars. I should be cheering for them.
I think what it did was reflect. You're known as the voice of Bands of America. I mean, that's your legacy, that's your signature, your tattoo, trademark, whatever you want. But when those kids heard your voice, I mean, you're a star. That's like the king came down to speak to everyone. And they were always, I would have kids come up and ask, is Chuck going to be here? Because everybody knows you as Chuck. Is Chuck going to be here? I go, yeah, he's going to drop by. Well, I mean, that's like Beyonce's going to come on and sing a couple tunes to him or something. I don't think, Chuck, you have any idea what a key cornerstone of the whole Bands of America umbrella circus landscape looks like. You are a part of that, a very important part of that. I mean, when you went joining us, my gosh, those kids went nuts right then. You could have read out of a phone book from that point on. You had them.
All right, let's take a moment for a quick break because I want to listen to some of your stories. Now, remember, if you've got a special Music for All or Bands of America memory or story, you can record it and be a part of this very 50th anniversary podcast. Just visit musicforall.org/podcasts to contribute your story.
Congratulations to Bands of America and your 50th anniversary season. Or should I be saying congratulations on our 50th anniversary season? Yes, you heard me right. I can honestly say that I was part of the Bands of America family 50 years ago. I know I'm dating myself, but back when Marching Bands of America began in 1975, I and my high school marching band were one of the first to participate in a competition hosted outside our state marching circuit, one that afforded marching bands to compete against top talent from across state lines. What Marching Bands of America started was innovative, so new, so exciting. Hello, my name is Beth Gary, and I'm a 1978 graduate of Bourbon County High School in Paris, Kentucky. We were a fairly competitive marching and concert band program under the direction of Dan Eberline. Mr. Eberline saw the opportunity to grow our experience through music education and took us to compete at a Marching Bands of America event, and there was no looking back. Music education has been an integral part of my life ever since those high school days, and I've remained an active supporter of music education and the performing arts ever since. Congratulations, Bands of America, on 50 years of positive, life-changing experiences.
Hey folks, here's a sentence I cannot believe I am saying. Happy 50th anniversary to Bands of America. My name is Mike Bridges. I was on the swag team. It was my first experience back in the last century, back in the times when Bands of America was in, I guess, early adolescence, about 10 or 11 years old the organization was. And it was just an absolutely amazing time. And like you might imagine, any 10 or 11-year-old, we weren't really sure what we were going to be or what we were going to be when we grow up, but we knew we were onto something. That we didn't know what we didn't know, but that certainly didn't stop us from doing what we were doing. We were stubborn enough and wide-eyed enough and creative enough to know that we were working with band kids and band directors, and that was something important. We knew we were going to make something out of this, but we weren't really sure what. And it has become such a tremendous, amazing organization, just grown and grown and grown and grown. I am so honored to have spent some time way back when with Bands of America, and congratulations on everything you've achieved so far, and happy birthday.
You know, I think you touched on a key element there, and that's being an element of the program, like something that if this part isn't there, it's not complete.
Yes.
And I would say that you are that person. So whether that's your sessions you're doing with the students or the sessions you do with the directors or something as kind and key as being the guy at the gate when the bands come down the tunnel. Now, I don't know that a lot of folks who would be listening to this would even know that because they're not kind of in part of the flow, but every band director certainly knows that when they're at Grand Nationals or at the regionals that you're able to attend, when they walk up to that gate, here is someone that I know. Here's a friendly face. Here's someone that I trust.
Yeah.
Tell me about that experience and what you do for the directors at the gate.
To me, that was when you use the word humble, they're probably at the most nervous point you can get. It's just for jumping off the cliff to see if you can fly or not. And you've turned your professional life over to 15-year-olds who are thinking about who am I going to ride with on the bus going home, or are we going to get hamburgers or whatever?
Right. Yeah. Who's got my pencil? Yeah.
And at that moment, you're looking for something. It's like being in a foreign country and finding somebody else that can speak English. And you bond immediately with that director going, please take care of me. Please take care of my kids. And I got your back, buddy. This is going to be great. They're at the very top. And you push their mind towards what an opportunity they've created for their students. What a difference this will make.
I've got to think they're coming down to you almost brain dead, right? I mean, they're just at a dial tone at that point.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. This is going to be a positively life-changing experience. And all of a sudden they go, oh my gosh, it was all worth the journey. It's all worth all the headaches. So it's a critical point.
The positively life-changing experience. That phrase, when BOA first started using it as a marketing tool, I was like, oh yeah, that's cute, but it's real.
Yes.
It is real. I know
Absolutely.
I've been changed as a person as a result of those experiences, and I'm not even on the field. Now, I've been down there and you see it from the field level, the kids' faces when they come out of that tunnel and look at the building.
Yeah.
What do you see there?
It's that moment of, I made it to the top of Mount Everest, right? I swam the English Channel.
Yeah, all the rehearsal, all the effort,
Yes.
everything you put into that moment. Here it is, right here and now.
Yes. And this is a reminder of celebrate the moment. Quit worrying about this is it. Just have the time of your life. And I think most of them do. Yeah.
Do you have any good stories from the gate? Anything that pops off the top of your head
Oh, there's so many stories
that you can share?
about the parents. Here's what I call the hernia crew, the dads that drag on the props and everything. And this one dad, they'll love this. One dad a couple years ago, it might have been a grandpa even that was helping, and they were dragging on some tarp or something. And he got to the gate and he's just like, and the veins in his head are standing out and everything. And I said, are you okay? He said, I had no idea marriage would lead to this. Isn't that great?
But he was loving it, right? He was loving it.
I just thought I was going to have a kid.
I love the crews, the band crews. They come with all the, they've got their matching shirts and their hats, and they, they're so coordinated.
They work harder at that, Chuck, than their own jobs sometimes.
So a little insider trading. So Dr. Tim and I, for the most part, are charged with keeping the show on time.
Yes.
So we operate. Tell everybody about the schedule that the bands operate on and kind of how that works.
Well, you know it better than anybody. I mean, you could literally set your watch, right?
By us.
Yeah. And so it literally was down to the second. Everybody go, how did you know? There's no magic to it. It's just check your watch and that'll do it.
So we do a 15-minute interval in the fall. And so when it's time for the band to come out, they get a certain amount of time to set up, a certain amount of time to tear down, to do their show, et cetera. So we've worked out a system where we synchronize our watches, right? Everybody synchronizes their watches. And then Tim releases the band. Tim, remind me of how much that is. It is a minute, 45 seconds?
4 minutes.
4 minutes. Yeah, 4 minutes setup. So at 4 minutes prior to, so if they've got a noon start at 11:56 on the dot is when Tim lets them go set up. Now we've all got the same clock. So then Tim will look at the drum majors, look at his watch, and then go, okay, the announcement is going to start, boom, now. And then I'll speak. And what do their eyes look like when that happens?
They're like, oh my God, how did you do that?
You're magic.
How did that man up there know?
It's so great. And, now it's no longer a secret. I mean, now the kids in the stands have caught on to it,
Yeah.
and you'll hear people count it down, right?
Yeah.
During finals and stuff.
Yeah.
Like now I want to mess it up just to make sure they're wrong. No, I'm kidding. Of course, I would never do that. Now, getting everybody off the field, that could be a challenge. What sort of issues do you see when the bands are trying to get their stuff off because the setup time is so long compared to the teardown time, right?
Yeah. And they have 2 minutes to get off.
Yeah. Are they worried about that? Or like, we're never going to get off in time?
Well, yeah. And sometimes you just have to go calm down because the truth is, and you know this, Chuck, even if it's over, we're not going to put a kid in jeopardy because they're going to be run over by a aircraft carrier prop or something like that, So just take your time. We'll get you off. Everybody's got to be safe.
Yeah, we make that time up if we get behind. There's never any issues there.
Absolutely.
People are always worried about penalties, aren't they? They're always worried about getting penalties. Do people actually get penalties at our shows, Tim?
You've got to have a pretty bad infraction that even if it's always a warning.
Yeah.
It's like, when the policeman pulls up and says, you're driving 90 in a 45, you better slow down if you're going to make this pathway again. In other words, if you're coming back for semis or for finals, why don't you fix that part?
Because the last thing that anybody wants is for a penalty
Yeah.
to decide a placement. That would be just awful.
Yeah.
None of us, no one in the building wants that to happen.
No.
I remember when I was teaching way back in the day, we went to a show, and I won't name it by name because I'll shame them if I do, but any infraction was a 5-point penalty.
Oh my gosh.
5 points. Our group went from 1st to 8th because of an overtime. You can imagine the disappointment in the kids and the directors. We never went back. I mean, obviously protested that big time, but I think that people get in their heads that when they come to a BOA show, that there are all these rules and restrictions, and it's going to be this, it's going to be that. And it's none of that.
No.
It's the most welcoming, wonderful place you could possibly take your band, isn't it, Tim?
Yes. The landscape is safe.
Yeah.
It's safe. We're going to do everything you can to make your program succeed.
That's the only reason we're here. The only reason is to make the programs feel better about what they're doing. To put them in an arena with people that are of the same ilk or better so that your kids can see those really great bands and go, we want to be that.
Yes.
That's what makes it work. That's why everybody's as good as they are, don't you think?
Oh, there's no question because the guardrails are educationally oriented. That makes sense?
Yeah.
And the idea that this is going to advance you, because, the way we do anything is the way we do everything.
Yeah.
And if you put in the time, effort, and energy, personal discipline, dedication, commitment to get this far, you're going to do better in everything in school. You're going to do better in everything in your home life, your relationships, because it builds habits of success.
You nailed it.
And we're creatures of habits.
I can't tell you the number of people that have come to me and said, you've got to be a big band to do well at Bands of America. And that's simply not true, is it?
No.
You have to play well. You have to do everything well. Case in point, 1992 Jackson Academy. That's the one I pull up every single time.
That's what I was thinking of, Chuck.
And I'm not one of those guys that remembers years and bands and what shows they played. You remember what they did in 70s? No, I don't. But I do remember 1992, the year that 35 kids made finals and placed one spot higher than the largest band to ever come to Grand Nationals.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. And at that moment, for me, that locked everything down as to why we do what we do.
And those kids, remember, they were like, what? Oh, we were just doing what we were told to do.
They had no idea what they were stepping into.
Huh.
When they pulled that tarp out, that first band to ever do something, with 35 kids, we're not going to play on this big field. We're going to play on this field.
Yeah.
And they brought all of our eyes down to their size.
Yeah, redefined it.
And it was amazing. All right, Tim, I want to kind of move back into the organization itself and your role in all the other events, because obviously Bands of America and Music for All specifically isn't just a marching band organization. There's concert band. You're now at the nation's largest summer music camp right now. Tell me about your role at the Bands of America Summer Camp.
Well, obviously, it started out as an administrative role to make sure all the pieces of the puzzle were in place. And then that's when we started the leadership part. And of course, George Parks was doing the drum majors and the momentum of, yes, this is about band and about getting better, but it's about making you a better human being, became the theme, and which is carried through forever now.
Music makes better people.
Because, if you look at it, Chuck, only a certain group of people are going to go on to be professional musicians, right? And some will go on to be music teachers, but the vast majority of them are going to be attorneys and doctors and architects and so forth. So it's the habit building, people skills.
A really good story around that is one of the first times that the Bands of America Music for All folks met with their attorneys in Indianapolis. Now, I don't know if you know this story or not, but they go into this law firm that's going to be representing Music for All. They're sitting in the boardroom, and it's this elaborate, dark red and black lacquered space, and the attorneys are all looking at their notes. Now, Music for All is all there, and Eric Martin, who was the executive director at the time, stands up and says, "How many of you were in your high school band?" And about half of them put their hands up.
Yeah.
And they had no idea. The others had no idea that they were all band kids, grown up band kids. And it changed everything about the room. It changed everything about the style of the meeting. All of a sudden, people were friendlier and warmer because they shared that common interest. As you know, band is the biggest single group of kids in the school usually.
Yeah.
Yet somehow, when they graduate, they kind of go back into the woodwork.
Well, that's true. It's sort of a understanding of the Green Beret. We all did this together. If you went through that journey, we have something in common. That it's the way we do everything in our lives now. And all of a sudden, you got a friend right away.
Yeah. All right. We touched on summer camp and what that's all about. Now, with the National Festival, you have a pivotal role in that as well. You do the same sort of leadership options for that event, right?
Well, that's when Scott was the executive director, Scott McCormick.
Yeah.
And, if we're going to be Bands of America, we got to reach out to all bands of America. We got to take jazz bands, chamber ensembles, which they do now, of course, and certainly concert bands. And it was like, if you've got this template, this scaffolding, well, let's put everything in it.
Now, I don't know where Music for All sits on the scale of international music education organizations, but it's got to be way up there. I mean, as far as our country is concerned, I can't imagine that there are groups that are doing what Music for All does that are of a bigger scale, that touch more kids, that touch more teachers than we do.
Oh, I would agree. And it's even administrators, they'll go, well, we're a BOA band. They have that coined phrase, we're a BOA band. And for the directors, as you know, Chuck, one of the things to do is we went to the National Festival. It's a sort of a checkoff of something I'd like to do. Or
I think because a lot of the groups that want to go to, say, Midwest, they'll come to the National Festival first because all those guys are there.
Yeah, it's something you do.
Now, Tim, you and I have spoken in the past about the need to touch people that weren't marching band people. Now, at a time when MBA became BOA, give me a little bit about that, because that was kind of a big thing. And for years afterwards, people were still calling it MBA. And now I don't know that anyone would even know what that reference means other than Masters of Business Administration. Why the need to change when it changed? That's a good story, isn't it?
Well, again, it's our likenesses that bring us together, but it's our differences that keep us together. And there was a huge segment of the band profession that wasn't under the umbrella that could participate. I mean, you could be a marching band, but again, what about jazz bands, or what about trombone choirs, or obviously, again, the symphony band or the concert band? What about those kids? Because a lot of times people in those groups aren't part of a marching band.
Were we talking about that, that there were a lot of schools, a lot of administrators who are, quite frankly, anti-marching band?
I think there is, there's an element of our profession that's like, that's not really music, or that's kind of a waste of time, or, you should be really focusing on. And I understand that. I mean, I was a college band director, so I understand that.
Yeah.
But this opened the spotlight. It widened it so that every part of band.
It was really funny for me to watch at a time when we started really expanding into Texas.
Yes.
To see those folks that were, I don't want to say anti-BOA, but
No.
there was a pushback.
Yeah.
That what we were doing wasn't what they were doing, and that they were operating at a much higher or a different level than we were.
Yes.
And to watch that change over the course of time has been so great to bring people, and I could say names like Richard Floyd or Jim Copenhaver or folks like that, to see them come to the events and go, okay, yeah, this is nothing what I thought it was. This is fantastic.
Right.
It's been so rewarding for all of us, I think.
Well, and that gave them an opportunity to participate then too. I mean, as an adjudicator or as an evaluator, all of a sudden you're going to the very best people that's their particular discipline in the profession. And now all of a sudden they're part of it.
Yeah. And maybe that was it all along. Maybe it was just,
Could be.
I'm not part of it, so it's no good.
Well, there's no question about that. It's like my favorite football team. Well, that's an arbitrary decision or whatever. And then once you're in it, you become it.
Yeah.
A religious choice, I'm a Lutheran, so the rest of these people aren't going to make it.
All right. If you had a magic ball and you were able to look into the future,
Yeah.
What do you think's next? Where do we go from here?
That's really an interesting question. And thanks for asking it, Chuck, because this is important. I'm not sure we have mined in a very positive sense the power that music brings to the children from behind the eyes of their parents. For every parent, the most important thing, for the most part, is the happiness and success of their child, right? They want them to succeed. I'm not sure there's any better training than music because it's inclusive. It's a universal language.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. Second of all, everybody can do it. You don't have to be 7'2", like playing basketball. Everybody is born with musical talent. Now, and the parents are going, what's the best thing for my kid in school that will make sure they do well and everything? Well, here we are. We make people better people, ultimately. So that's where I think we need to put our efforts.
So the future is parent groups, parent seminars?
Yes.
How do we get into the school systems to say to moms and dads, when you're picking curriculum, this is the curriculum to choose?
Yeah, I think that's an education that has to come from the director that just doesn't say, let's see who signs up, but goes out and really makes an effort aggressively, assertively to the parents, to all the fifth graders, not just the ones who come to the night where you choose an instrument, to all. Because the other day, Chuck, I looked at the thing, there were 5.3 billion pieces of information demonstrating the advantage, the benefits of coming for being a music learner, music maker.
Wow.
5.3. You couldn't read that, all those.
Wow.
We need to get that in the hands of parents. And that, again, comes back to the teacher to do.
Well, hopefully things like this will help to reach some ears that we didn't know we could reach before.
We'll save a few starfish because of this.
I've got one more thing for you, Timmers. Now, you've been attached to Bands of America for, 50 of the 50 years that this organization has been here. Now, were you 12 when you started? 13, maybe?
I was six. Mm-hmm.
And you may be the only person who's still actively associated with it. You know, you've been there and you've done that, and you've been a teacher, you've been an administrator, you've been an advisor, you've been out on the front lines, you've been behind the scenes. What does it mean to you to be associated with Music for All's 50 years?
Well, God, you're so good at questions. What's in your blood? You know, if you cut my arm, I'll bleed Bands of America, Music for All. You couldn't buy an education like this. And because of Larry McCormick and Scott McCormick and Eric and Jeremy and everybody who's sat in that seat, they've always rolled out the red carpet. And I mean, even today, I get to hang out with kids today for leadership. 50 years, a half century? Are you kidding me? And today's like the first day.
Yeah, every time. It's like the first time, isn't it?
And Chuck, it's because of, it's all relationships. And I love Chuck Henson. My wife worships you. And if it wouldn't have been for Bands of America, I wouldn't have had a Chuck Henson in my life. That's worth gold, man. That's gold.
I think that's the key. I think you're right on target. It's that music makes better people, period. There's no question about that.
Yeah.
It's the folks you've been able to come across and to talk to and to learn from and to teach and to be associated with over the course of that time that keeps us on this trajectory of, as they say, excellence.
Yes.
You know, because excellence breeds excellence. You know, superiority breeds superiority. And when you expect nothing less of the people that are around you, that brings you up to the same level.
We become like the people we hang around.
Boom. My dad said that to me 1,000,000 times when I was growing up.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah, and it's absolutely true.
And that's why for the parents, you know, your kids are in school, they got lots of choices of who their gang members are going to be. And band is a gang. It's a cult. Sure. Right?
Culture.
Sure.
I like that you broke the word up in that way.
Yeah.
I introduce people and say, hey, these are band friends or these are drum corps friends of mine, and they instantly get a buy.
Yeah.
Instantly, they're good people. You know, you get that stamp right out of the box because I just said you're a band person. So therefore, of course, you're a good person.
Yeah, we don't have algebra jackets or chemistry t-shirts, but we have all our band swag logo stuff, don't we?
Amen, brother.
And we keep it till the threads wear out. And when you go back to your high school reunion, who hangs out together? The band people, just like they did in school.
I raise my glass to band people. Timmers, you're the best. Any final thoughts you want to share as we celebrate 50 years of excellence with Music for All and Bands of America?
Just congratulations to everybody who's been a part of it, who's contributed to it. And Chuck, you, again, you're a cornerstone of it. And I think the fact you're doing this series of joining us is the coolest thing in the world. We talk about something that's going to live through eternity. These people will listen to these things when we're long gone and go, "Whoa, are those guys crazy or what?" Yeah, maybe.
Or what? Yeah, we're crazy.
Or what?
Thank you, Tim. I appreciate all that. And I'm so happy to have you. Like I said, it couldn't have been a better number one guest than you, my friend.
I love you, pal. Thank you.
So thank you. Enjoy summer camp. Tell everybody I said, hey, okay?
Okay. Bye, Chuck.
Thank you, my friend. Hey, thanks for listening to the Joining Us podcast. We are celebrating 50 years of Music for All and Bands of America. Do you have your own story or memory to share? Well, I want to hear it. You can record your own story by visiting musicforall.org/podcasts. We may just include your voice in a future episode. Hey, thanks to Yamaha, our national presenting sponsor, and don't forget to make sure you're subscribed to the Music for All Podcast Network, wherever you get your podcasts. I want to thank Ben and Laura from the team at Music for All for making this happen and lining up all of our guests. And of course, the way it sounds, that's the magic of our executive producer, Patrick Keller.